Hey, it is January 16th, 2024. Welcome to another show, Heart Centered Marketing. And this is going to be another epic show. I just saw my guest pop in here, and hopefully the audio and the video is going to work because we usually like to do this beforehand. So if the audio and as we adjust these live, I apologize in advance. I'm sure it's all going to work out really, really great. But happy New Year to you! If this is the first time you're seeing us back here, we had a little bit 1 week of a break before for the Christmas holidays and New Year's and all that, which is very rare because we've been going at this strong every single week for about 4 years or so, and that was the first week that I ever took off. So it was kind of weird not to be doing this live. But welcome to the show. Welcome to this discussion. Please interject with this discussion if you are vibing with what we're talking about. If you have any questions, if you have any input, we would love to hear from you. And hopefully, there we go. Just give me a second to get the cameras all set up here for a second. There we go. Hey, Rebecca. I don't know.
Hi.
Good. Thank goodness. At least I can hear the audio because that's what kind of gets messed up.
Yay!
So I don't know when I'm switching back and forth. I might just have to set up the cameras, but that'll take me just a second to do it. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to
You
see
are
you
back
too.
from
And I'm
where?
sorry,
Like
I
you
did
had
this
the.
too last time.
Did you? Oh my gosh. Last
I
time you had a
did.
technical
And
issue
I
though, didn't
swore
you?
I wouldn't do it. No, we never had a technical issue. I was just running like a chick with my head cut off. My son just got kicked out of his place in Ottawa, and I'm like, you have got to be kidding. The
Oh,
landlord's being a complete dick about it. So that's where my brain was. That's why I was late. I'm thinking evil thoughts about him right now. But that's not what we're here for, is it, Joey?
no. We're here for good thoughts. Good thoughts. And I'm sure everything will work out with your son. I mean, you're
Yep.
you're awesome. Um, where was I going to go with this? Oh yeah, so you were just away. Like, tell us how'd that go? Like, where did you go?
I went to Punta Cana. So twice a year, I take my mastermind group over to somewhere really cool and beautiful. Last year, it was Los Cabos, which was absolutely gorgeous. This last week was in Punta Cana. But instead of going to a hotel, I rented a 9-bedroom house with a staff of like 7 people. And their culture is incredibly service based. So they like bent over backwards. Everyone's complaining now that no one's making them food, no one's serving them drinks now that they've all gotten home. Like what's happening? The service around here sucks, right? So it's been pretty funny, but that's where I was. So it's 5 days, Sunday through Friday, and that's where the empire building happens. And
Mm.
it is my favorite thing to do. I teach for zero point 0.0 minutes. My whole thing is connecting. So I curate the people in the room and then I begin the discussion. I have a format and a formula that I follow that brings out the one thing or the few things that are really going to explode people's businesses and bring them joy and profits and fulfillment. And then everyone in the room collaborates to tell them how to do it. It is like
I love
the best
that.
thing in the whole wide world. Oh my God. I just want to do this until I'm dead. That's all I want to do. This
I
masterminds all day long.
Yeah, I love that, and I was preparing actually for this call a little bit of just notes of like what I understand empire building, which is nowhere near what you're doing, but I'm with you because just recently, I'm building the team and I'm building the company, and it's the first time I've ever been in the position to be doing all this and all the headaches, not the headaches, but the growing pains that come with it, and all these things, right? And it all has to do with a lot of vision, which like what is your zone of genius? Where do you want to live every day? And I realized
Mhm.
very recently that all I want to do is creative coaching and conversation. That's it. That's where I want to live. That's where I want to be. That's what I'm really great
Cool.
at doing. And
Mhm.
so this is really exciting to me. And I hope that anybody listening to this can get an idea of how to build your business based around your genius. So where do you want to start with this?
Oh heavens! Taki Moore. I heard him talk at one of the Archangel things that you and I do. I've gone to, and he was the first. It was the first time I ever heard lifestyle empire used
Mm,
as a term,
hmm
and I'm like, ooh, I like that. How do you get that? So how does that happen? And so I've, since that talk back in October, I have been investigating, ways to look at my own business and really build it around a scalable, profitable, sustainable, and joy-filled model. Like, how do I actually create that? And I've been training and coaching on it as a high performance coach for years. But what I've done is I've created an actual methodology around it, that I call the Profitable Millionaire methodology, right? And I have a Profitable Millionaire club. And millionaire, and again, you and I have talked about this, it's
Right.
either $1 million and or 1 million people that you want to impact with your message, right? You
Right.
want their lives to be changed. So however you want to define it. And if millionaire makes you kind of go, like it does for a lot of people because it's an overused term, I always say put in your max, right? Because everyone has an empire, and your empire may be the size of China or maybe
Mm-hmm.
the size of Liechtenstein, which is very, very small,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or it could be a city state like the Vatican City or Washington D.C. or something like that. But each one of those is an empire in its own right. And if we can say, okay, I want, like you've defined it clearly, you want to do coaching, creative, and conversations. Is that was
Yeah,
that the
that's
three?
right. Yeah. Collaboration,
Perfect,
conversations,
right?
whatever you want to call it, communication. Yep.
Bingo jingo, right? And my three things are beliefs, actions, and habits.
Mm-hmm.
That those are the three things that I want to help people get really, 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 really good at. Because when you, in my mind, for the methodology that I teach, when you have your beliefs
Yeah.
intact, you're emotionally regulated, you have the right thoughts in your head, or you're able to kind of bring your thoughts back because they'll always wander off into the negative. You got to kind of herd them back like cats. And then a vision. So those are the three components of beliefs. If those are in order, then you can take action, which is composed of who you're taking action for, like what contribution are you making,
Right.
what roles would you be playing, and then what are you doing to actually grow? Like what are the actual, like this is where like marketing comes in or sales or all that kind of shit.
Exactly.
And then once that's all figured out, then how do you turn it into habits so that it becomes routine? So you're just like, it's just cooking with gas. And those are the 6 habits of high performance, that have been scientifically proven to deliver higher income, greater happiness, stronger relationships, among other things.
Yeah.
So when I go into, my weekly mastermind or a one-on-one call or anything, right, that I'm doing, I'm teaching to that particular methodology. And so the empire building begins by understanding at the core, what are you delivering? And then what are, typically it's 3 things, but what are the 3 things that will deliver that? So your 3 things are content, creative, and conversations. Did I get those 3 things? I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Well,
blank on that every single time.
yeah, it's all good. It all depends on like how we're looking at the context of this because I'm like you. That's not what I really teach. This is my genius zone. So when
Mhm.
I'm looking at building my company now, my business, it's like from Dan Martel, who's best friends with Taki. Like they're both like at the hip,
Mhm.
and so it's like okay, well, he mentioned something that he repeats over and over again that I took to heart, which was you don't hire to build the business, you hire to replace your time. And I'm like, wow, okay, so
Mhm.
where do I want to spend my time? And it's only in the genius that I do, which is creative marketing and writing. I love all that stuff, and just sitting back and just like,
Mhm.
okay, where are we going with this? And let me look at different things and coaching people. So when I'm in the coaching seat, I'm doing exactly what you're doing, which is okay. You got to get your beliefs down. You got to get your habits down. We got to do all these other things. So like that heart-centered marketing system and all that is part of the coaching piece of it. But that's all I want to do
Mhm.
because I'm really great at it when I can step into somebody's world, right? And then it's the communication part or the conversation piece, which is for me sales, right? Like when I'm chatting with people or how do I do it? It's very hard for me to replace that at this point to say,
Right.
Rebecca, here's the scripts or anything. I don't have scripts, but like, here's how I do this, or watch me, or I'm going to record 25 hours and you watch and you replace me. Impossible. Like
Mhm.
for me, this is what I want to do, and this is how I do it really, really well, and I don't mind doing it.
Mhm.
So it's being very
Mhm.
clear of where do I want to spend my time, and that's it.
Mhm.
And replacing all those other
Mhm.
pieces. So to build the empire for me is to replace all of those other places
You
where
got it.
I can systematize, which is what I've been doing. Like the last year has been, oh my God, like doing the camcorder method and recording every dang thing that I do. And in fact, I spoke about this on the Academy call today, the mastermind, my mastermind, which is, and when I first started this, because you talked about habits, when I first started
Mhm.
this, it was a pain in the arse. It was like, oh my God, I have to do this. email, or this is how I send a broadcast email, and it would take me, let's say, 20 minutes or half an hour to do it, but because I'm recording everything, it's now taking me double the time or even triple the time. And it was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'll just do this tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. But then I'm like, no, this
Mm-hmm.
is the whole idea, because it's supposed to be painful at the beginning. But now I can tell you, Rebecca, and you know this, I don't have to tell you, I'm preaching to the choir, but for anybody else listening, is that now that method has been done once and is being
Mm-hmm.
replicated, and it can be replicated so someone else can go do that if they have to. Am I on the right track with this?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, and the thing is, like, my genius, I love coaching too. But what I've also realized I love even more than that is connecting and
Mm,
creating collaboration,
there
right?
you go.
Like, and one of the aspects, so I'm morphing my one-on-one program into what I call the trifecta. It's a hybrid. It includes a whole bunch of recordings, so all of my training and stuff like that, and it will always be added to, right? I'll just keep
Yeah.
adding and adding and adding and adding, because like you, I record everything. um, then there's a group component, which is historically and traditionally, everybody comes in and someone in the front talks, and maybe they bring in a speaker or all that, but everyone else in the audience is listening,
Yeah.
right? Um, I tune out. I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. And I have to work really hard, even if it's like super, super interesting. And I'm like, okay, come on, squirrel brain, focus, right? Like, and really, really pay attention. That's what I do better, like skipping the actual call, and I just listen to the recording after. So I
Me too.
actually
Yeah.
I put a slot in my calendar for later in the week, because that's what I'm actually going to go listen to it, because I can start, stop, download workbooks if I need to, and just kind of work it all out at my own pace, instead of making someone make me match their pace, which sounds really egotistical and possibly narcissistic, but it's just how my,
Not at
my
all.
brain works. I don't
I'm
sit
totally with
still.
you.
I
I'm
don't
the
sit
same way.
well. Oh my God. Is it control freak? I don't know. I consider it just selective. Anyway. Um, so what I love to bring into my group calls is actually that mastermindy piece that I was talking to you about, that I did in Punta Cana,
Mm,
where I just curate the people into the proper groups, and I let them solve each other's problems. Like, they're good at it. They're excellent. They're brilliant in their own way. And it's so much easier for me to solve your problem than it is to solve mine. But as I'm telling
exactly.
you about solving your problem, I'm like, perhaps I should take my own advice.
Right.
Right. So people
Right.
start actually solving their own problems. And then away they go. So there's the group, which is mostly masterminding. There's the training for like when people actually need the how-to stuff. And then there's a little bit of one-on-one, and it is completely reserved for planning and action taking. Because one of the ways that I make my mastermind so effective is before we leave. So we do 2 days, sometimes 2.5 days of people masterminding with each other. They present for half an hour. They leave the room. We brainstorm for half an hour. I bring them back into the room, and they get all the ideas. Then there's one golden rule they have to follow, which is you cannot say no.
Right.
Can't say no.
Right.
You can challenge the idea, but you can't be like, that's stupid. You
Yeah,
can't
it's
say
not going to
that,
work for
right?
me.
No, it's like, it's like, quack, quack, not listening. You have to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because then they get home and then they stop, like they don't realize that, okay, but if the idea didn't work, you can say no because you tried it. You just can't say no outright, because this woman's like trying to do the CRM thing and it's not working anyway. So, but at the end, on the Thursday before everyone goes home, we spend the whole day mapping things out. So I give them big pieces of like like a sticky paper, but like the big ones. Like I got big ones on my wall over there,
Yep.
those bad
Yep.
boys. So I give them a slightly smaller version of that, and a whole bunch of sticky notes, all these different colors and markers and pens. Like honestly, it's like craft day, and everybody gets their own little craft pot, and they have markers and stuff like that, and they make a 30-day plan, split out week 1, 2, 3, and 4. So when you go and you hit the ground running on Monday, what are you going to do? Not what are you going to do like in 2 months? What are you going to do Monday? Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
action that you're going to take? And then they have a 90-day vision for how this is all going to go. Like, so like in the 90 days, I will have accomplished these
Mm-hmm.
sort of like big things. But in the next 5 days, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make these many calls. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
do this with my CRM. I'm going to do blah, blah, whatever. Right. And this woman messages me today. We've been home 2 days, 2. And she's like, I'm falling behind. I'm trying to get this stuff done. Blah, blah, blah. She's trying to move an entire CRM over, and she's telling me that she's fallen behind. And I'm like, Erin, it's day 2.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay. You haven't moved your 3,000 person database from one CRM to another.
Yeah.
In 2 days. Like, but that's how, like, they're so excited. I had a presentation from a neuroscientist to the group today, because every 2 months I bring in a speaker, and that was really cool because at the end he started reading our faces, and I'm like, what witchcraft is this? But it's called applied neuroscience. Apparently it's a thing, and it's how they choose juries. It's like your earlobe. Like, have you ever looked at your earlobe? I've never looked at my earlobe so closely than I have today. So apparently, this is the kind of stuff that you get on my mastermind, just in case you're wondering. It's really fascinating stuff.
That is so cool.
Big earlobes means that you're super emotional, and little earlobes means that you like stuff direct and to the point.
What are mine?
Who knew? I know. I'm direct.
I think I'm like direct. I like stuff direct to the point.
Yeah.
Like,
we got little wiggly things down here.
Yeah, I'm like, just get to the point. I don't need the story right now. And then if I need the story, I'll ask you. By the way, if you're watching,
then there's an eyeball thing. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, if you're here, if you want to get into our Facebook group, this is where you go. I just want to give a little plug for the Facebook group. It's for heart-centered people only who have a mission, who want to serve their corner of the world. We're not in there actually promoting and doing all the stuff that you see in a lot of other groups and gather the group and pitch every single day. That's not us, okay? And as well, please let us know if you have any questions, input, or anything like that, some feedback on what you're doing, and we'd love to answer that, because I want this to be like an interactive place, not just a dialogue between Rebecca and I. Not that it's a bad thing, but we want to be able to serve you as well. And Rebecca, going back to the mastermind thing,
Yes.
one of the things, because I've been doing masterminds for a long, long time, not as much as you in terms of the live stuff, but for a long time, since 2012 or something like that. And I remember when I would bring the crew in, because there'd be like only 6, maybe 8 of us, something like that. The most would be 10. And we would do the whole accountability thing. Like, here's what we're going to do. We'd go through the whole, challenge sheet and all that, write down the plans that we're going to do. They'd write down what they're going to do and on the Monday. And we'd have this 24-hour action item that they would need to do. And we took this a step further. So we'd go around the room and we say, listen, what is the one thing that you would just not want to do? Like, I don't care what it is, but what is one thing that would just go against your moral values or something? Not bad things. I'm not talking about murder or anything like that, but just one thing that would be like, what would you not want to be able to do? Okay. And I stole this directly from my first coach, Greg. So I give him all the credit, but he went around the room. We all basically said what we wouldn't want to do. Like the craziest things. One dude said, get up at 4 a.m. in the morning and run around the block naked in the middle of winter. Like, I would just hate to do that, right? So all of it was all these crazy things. And so that was your accountability thing, that if you didn't do the thing, you would have to do the thing, right? That you wouldn't want to do. Some people said, pay money to a political group that they didn't like or whatever it was, right? But here's the twist on that. So I did the same thing. I'm like, what is it for you guys, right? And they all said it. And I go, well, this is going to motivate you. And then I'm going to put you into groups of 3 or 2, whatever it was. And you're going to be accountable to each other. So Rebecca, let's say you and I are in the group, and you have your bad thing or not so great thing, and I would have mine. And if either one of us didn't do it, we'd have to do the thing that we didn't do, that we didn't want to do. So you had this whole group now that is based on everybody else's, like, holy crap, dude. So everybody's emailing each other going, did you do it, Rebecca? Did you get your thing done? Because I don't want to run around the thing.
Not do it.
Right. So it was so classic. Awesome. And I'm like, I'm taking that, and I ran with that. And every time I did it for the masterminds, I would do the same thing. I said, well, you're all accountable to each other now, so you better make sure you do this. So yeah, I'm all about the whole implementation. Let's get the plan going. What did you learn today? What's going to happen on Monday? I don't care. You don't have to move your whole CRM over, but maybe you moved over 10. Like, I don't care what it is, but what's your 24-hour action? And I think that one came from Tony Robbins. It's like, what's the 24-hour action? And then I inserted Greg's thing, and I'm going to marry the two. And now it was magical. Magical.
That's hilarious. You know what? where was I? I was on one of Taki's things, and he did that. He's like, "What would I think it was my kickoff call because I started his coaching program. And it's been really fun. Learned a lot, and so I think they did that. It's like, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? And I was being lame. I think I put in like I wouldn't be able to drink tea. And he's like, who wrote that? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not painful enough.
No, that's what he said. Apparently, it wasn't painful enough. A little bit fine. But I keep wandering off the wrong side of the screen here. But yeah, so that I love the group again. Anything where because there's two types of commitment. There's commitment to ourselves and commitment to
Mm,
others, and we are infinitely more likely to do something when we commit to someone else than if we commit to ourselves, right? So, I say I'm going to go to the gym. If I don't go and I'm like, man, I'm disappointing myself, right?
yeah,
Which
yeah,
unfortunately, because people don't value themselves very well, they let that go. But if you're going to the gym and you're meeting me there, well, I got to go because you're going to be there and I don't
yeah.
want to let you down. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when you marry those two things together where actually letting yourself down is as painful as letting someone else down. That's when you know that you've actually increased your own self-worth and everything starts to really kind of click after that. But no, I love that whole concept.
Yeah, 100%. And imagine that you're not letting someone else down, but also you have this other pain that's sitting there saying, well, if that person doesn't do this, I got to go do this other thing that is a real
Oh,
pain for me. Like
yeah.
that's just an amplifier. Like I couldn't believe it when he said that because we were all went around the room and we all were heroes because well, here's what would be really painful for me. And then he goes, well, guess what? You three over here, you three over there. I'm like, what? So it wasn't. It was a real shocker.
Yeah,
Needless
I
to say,
love
I didn't
that.
have to run around the
Can I
block.
take that? Can I
Yeah,
can I take that because I so
it's
want
not
to use
mine.
that at my
I'm
next
just,
one.
but yeah, it's so amazing. So let's talk
Oh, love
like,
that.
so what else about empire building? So you talked about like frameworks, or do you want to talk a little bit about
Mhm.
frameworks or business building things? Anything that we could give someone
Sure.
some insight to?
Yeah. Well, I'll share what Taki shared from October, which I thought was really meaningful because there's three categories that he believes need to be defined very clearly for people if they're going to build any kind of an empire. So he's building a lifestyle empire. I like that idea, but you know, insert whatever word you want in front of the word empire. One is time, one is
Mm-hmm.
money, and one is meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when you're looking at where you are now versus where you want to be, from a time perspective, how many hours are you working now versus how many do you want to be working? Let's
Mm-hmm.
call it per week, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
most people measure their time is how many hours a week do they work. And maybe right now you work 50 or 60 and you want to get that down to 30, right? So 30, three solid 10-hour days or 4 days of, a shorter period of time. Maybe that's where you want to go. And from a money perspective, how much money do you make now? And I like to be very specific. How much profit do
Right.
you have now? Like, what's your take-home fund money, not
Yeah.
just your top line? Because I always say anyone can build $1 million business, but very few people can build it profitably and
Yeah.
sustainably, right?
Yeah. That's
And
one of the
actually
things
enjoy the
too.
process.
Yeah, it's like even right now, I'm looking at mine on the goal sheet, and it doesn't say revenue; it says profit. Make this much
Yep.
money in profit. So yeah, I totally agree with you because I've seen it a billion times where people like look at me and I've got this award and it cost them, 100,000 more than the actual award was, but they still could say, well, I made right, I made this
Yeah,
money. Okay,
exactly.
but how much did you
All
take?
the awards are bought. Yeah, all those things in my mind. Some of them are well earned, but a
Yeah,
lot of them can be bought, and so I just don't put any stock into them. So how much time, sort of like your time now versus your goal, your money now versus your goal, like how much profit do you want to be making? And then the most important piece is why. Like for what? What is the meaningfulness behind what you do? If you're just doing it for money, that wears out. It does.
yeah,
Like it wears
very
out
quickly.
for everyone, or you hit the greed button and then you get yourself in a whole pile of trouble, right? Because
Hmm.
it's never enough. And we've seen, Ponzi schemes and all these other guys that they were doing really, really well, but it was just never enough because they had no meaningfulness to what they were doing. So then they started just going into the illegal world and then they got caught and go to jail and bad things. So what is going to give the whole thing a meaning for you? Like for me, The meaningfulness is sort of a three-parter. I want to help as many people live happy, wealthy, and fulfilled lives.
Hmm.
And most often, our meaning, our why, if you want to call it that, I like to call it my so that,
Yeah.
because why can be a really damaging question to ask yourself, because it can bring up a lot of our defenses, right? Like,
Hmm.
why didn't you do your homework versus what's happening so that it made it hard for you to do your homework. One is very hard pudding, and I don't think we should ask ourselves that question. So when we get to the meaningfulness about what you're doing, I prefer the so that approach
Mm.
as opposed to the why approach. No disrespect to Mr. Sinek, who has a lovely book on Start With Why,
Yeah.
which I have over there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of, and when you can define, sorry to interrupt, I'll just finish my thought and then I will totally shut up for a period of time, shorter period of time. When you have your time goal, you have your money goal, you have your meaningfulness goal. Now you know kind of where you're headed. It's kind of like that general idea of where you're headed. And from there, we start nailing down to all the stuff you and I started talking about at the beginning of this call, right? Like I love curating people so they can collaborate together in a room, have really meaningful conversations, solve each other's problems, and stay in each other's lives. Like that's what I want to do. And I coach the holes. That's my job. So I have to stay way ahead of these people because I have to catch them when they start to fall outside, right?
Right.
When they start to kind of, lean back and go into old habits, or they
Right.
wander off and they stop participating. There was, anyway, I have other sidebar thoughts creeping in, as we all know, in terms of what makes a program successful. But, it's really, once I figured out like those three things, I built my own model and framework that I
Yeah.
use that bring me the life and the money that I want, and all of it contributing to the meaningfulness. So when anyone's looking at like, what's my empire? That's not a fair question. How much time do you want to work? How much money do you want to make? What impact do you want to have in whose life, right? Like, who are you trying to affect? And usually the answer in terms of, oh, how do I do that, really starts to come from there.
Yeah, and this is a lot of reflection that I've been doing the last little couple of years as well on this, and I agree with you. Like the why question is like, why do you do this? Is like maybe not the right question all the time, and
Mm.
I'm more into the what. Like so, like
Oh,
what is
yeah.
the purpose of my business? What is it here for?
Mm-hmm.
What is it here to do? And I know the purpose. Like I know my mission in life, or at least the main part of it. There might be a couple of more, but mine is really simple. It's to stop entrepreneurs from sacrificing their life for their business. Period. That's it. And then so then I
Mm-hmm.
ask myself, like, what do I need to do or to show them, or to help them not sacrifice their life? That's it. So
Got it.
for me, it is about that creative piece. Okay, what can I show them, or what can I teach them, or what can I pull from all of the knowledge in my head and combine into a post or whatever it is, and share that. And then in the coaching part of it, what do I need to help them understand and help them agree to, or help them see all that, to move them forward so that doesn't happen. And then the communication part is pretty simple. I'm always communicating my
Mm-hmm.
my stance, or my, like, that flag is planted heavily in that mountain. I'll die on that mountaintop. Like, you can't tell me whether I'm wrong about it, because this is what I believe and this is what I've seen. My dad went through it. I went through it. I see people every day sacrificing their life, and all I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
do is get to them before they start to sacrifice. Because not only the sacrifice, but it's about, so many of them, their dreams die because they've been sacrificing and
Yeah.
they haven't learned methodologies and mindsets, all the stuff that we are heavily invested in, right? Reading the
Mm-hmm.
books and getting guidance and coaches and all these other things, they haven't been invested in that enough, and being pulled in all these directions. Distraction big is a big red flag for me. I'm like, oh, how can I help you not be just so distracted? Because I'm
Yeah.
in that zone of cleaning up a lot of mess. But I understand where my position is. I understand where my genius lies. But I got to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca, sometimes it's not fun to wake up every day and know that that is my position of, kind of, whatever you want to call it, the firefighter. Like, I'm usually cleaning up things, and I'm always trying to get people before that happens, but I have to
Mm-hmm.
be very careful on how I approach that, because I understand what
Mhm.
it's like as well to be the beginner where there's, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like look at that, look at that, look at that. And to scale back and try to move those people
Mhm.
beyond, to not hit that hole, right? That's my
Mhm.
biggest challenge, that I don't know if that's
Yeah.
ever going to go away, but that's
Yeah.
what
You
the
know what
whole
my
purpose
biggest
of it
challenge
is.
is? My
Pardon?
biggest challenge, one of
Mm.
my biggest challenges, so it's I totally hear you, is people that wander away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just like, where did you go? Like, last time we talked, we were talking about A, B, and C, and you're supposed to do this, 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 and then it's like, caca, they just disappear into the ether. And it's being able to know how to bring those people back. So the neuroscientist I was talking to today was really interesting because he talked a lot about, how 95% of all of our decisions are based on emotion,
Mm-hmm.
and therein lies the answer to why do people get distracted. It's an emotional decision
Mm-hmm.
that they're making. Somewhere in there, there's an emotion that they're either not recognizing or they're not acknowledging, that is making them flip and go in the other direction. Like I had a heart to heart with a client, Reed. It was a shit kicking conversation of, I'm not going to talk to you anymore if every time we talk, you come back and say, I got distracted. I'm not going to do that anymore, right?
You
Because
know,
you're now using it as an excuse as opposed to looking at a way to solve it.
oh, okay. So let me just interject there for a second, because you're lucky, at least, that they're admitting that. In my world, a lot of the times, I've
Mm.
been in situations where, and this is how I got really clear on my dream client, which was, and again, when I say this stuff, please, anybody listening to me, I'm not judging any humans or anything like that. There's no judgment here. It's
Oh
just the
no.
fact of its
Mm.
reality of like where my genius lies. But when it comes to, I'll just call it beginners. Again, I know that they're distracted and they're looking for all shiny objects, and I think you just have to go through some of that. You just really have to. But I get frustrated because I'm like you. I'm that implementer. I'm like, okay, here's what we're gonna do, and I'll spend, not spend, I should say, I invest. I love doing this. It's not like I waste time, but I'll invest time and
Mhm.
back and forth, and here's what I think, and let's get on a call or something, whatever. And they're like, wow, like you really like blew my mind. And then the next day they'll be like doing something completely different, and I'll see that. I'm like, what happened there? And then they come back and they're like, so I did all these other things, and then because I can monitor all this, I can see it. I'm like, what?
Mhm.
I'm not saying my word is gold, but holy crap, like we spent all this time doing these things, so they don't even say that they're distracted. They're just like, oh well,
Mhm.
I listened to what you said, but I went over to Rebecca and she said go do this. I'm like, okay, then go work with Rebecca. Like that's okay. And then Tony
Yeah.
said this. Like, okay, then go work with Tony. Like, you know what I mean? It's that frustrates me.
Mhm.
So they're not even saying that they're distracted.
Mhm.
They're like, no, this is what I need to do. And maybe they're right. Maybe that they need to listen to everybody else. But that's my kryptonite. I can't do anything with those people. You're right. I
No,
can.
you can't.
It's just like,
Well, they won't land. They won't land for you to
yeah.
even be able to say, well, because I had the client today, she bought into a company called Brand Builder, and
Mm-hmm.
I looked it up, and it's a huge company, and it's massive, and she's an incredibly beautiful, wonderful, incredibly distractible person, and I'm like, oh God, okay, so I get itchy. That's what
Yeah.
happens when these things go sideways. I literally like I scratch the back of my neck. I'm like, I don't know. Okay, we're gonna solve this. So 'cause she has a business over here and she's just basically coasting on it. And I'm like, okay, like beautiful, beautiful woman. I'm a performance coach. So you telling me that you're not going to add any fire to this regular, like the business that's sustaining her because you want to launch this other thing where her passion is, and you can make money over here, but you still need this to kind of work. So what we narrowed it down on was this company was so big that she's just a number, right? And so again, it's like I was trying to say, what's the curriculum? Couldn't answer the question, and I'm like, send me the login. And so my job now is to try to say, okay, even though she's wandered off to this other group, I am now going to be like, fine. I'll hold you accountable to that stuff over there. You want to go listen to them? Fine. Knock your socks off. I could do this in 2 seconds, but whatever. Right. It's a good system. It's a great company.
Yeah.
It's just really big and she can get lost. And I think that when I see people wandering off like that, that's all I can do. The other thing that I found really cool, which is why for the new hybrid model program that I'm doing, the Profitable Millionaire Club, the group session is me putting people into cohorts
Right.
because I want them to be responsible to each other. And I
Hmm.
want them to have to come back and look into the faces of 4 people or 5 people or whatever, like depending on the size of the group. And you tell them you did nothing. You don't want to do that, right? Like one of the reasons, like this girl Erin, she reported back that she's falling behind after day 2, is because she's like, look what everyone else is doing, and I'm like, okay, so everyone else is suffering from what everyone else is suffering from, which is I'm going to beat you because there's a whole bunch of like super, motivated human beings, which is great. But at the same time, like take a fucking breath, people, right? Like give it a second. But yeah, so
Yeah,
my
and it's
thoughts on
funny you
water.
said that because like just last week on Academy, that my mastermind is we introduced this idea, not idea. Well, I've been wanting to do this for ages, ever since I started doing live ones, where you have that
Mm-hmm.
accountability, where you come in and you look the quick check in,
Yeah.
and it's like, here's what I did, here's what I didn't do, here's what I'm going to do next, kind of thing, whatever, right? And so we're
Mm-hmm.
just introducing that now, and it's going to be a very interesting role to see, how that's going to play out, because that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
used to, and it's very uncomfortable. Like it's uncomfortable when you have to go into a room and say, I didn't do this, and
Yeah.
just didn't get that done, just didn't get that done. And like, but that
Mm-hmm.
loving challenge from everybody else is like, well, that's been on your list for like 4 weeks. Is there a reason why that's not kind of moving up, or is it really
Mm-hmm.
important to the quarter goal? Like, let's look at that for a second, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that, if we're in masterminds that allow you to hide, where you're not really talking it out or coming to the table, at
Mm-hmm.
least where everybody knows what you're supposed to be doing or where you want to go, you're not really not going to get that help. Do you agree?
No, 100%, and that's why most masterminds are not masterminds. Like when I
Right.
went, the first one I did 8 years ago, that was not a mastermind; it was a small group conference because there were people that
Yeah.
came in and taught us stuff. Right? It was a workshop. Is really what it was. It's a workshop. The second one I went to was with Frank Kern. Right?
Yeah.
That wasn't a mastermind. That was I don't even know what you would call it. Everybody sit in a room and talk about what our businesses do. He goes home, comes back, and goes around the room and tells us what we need to do.
Right.
Like I could have done that in a one-on-one call without traveling to San Diego and spending $2,000,
Right.
in airfare and hotel and food and all that kind of stuff. Right? Like it's like but that was called. He called it his private client group, so he didn't call it a mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the format, and that's why I don't do mine that way. Right? That's why I don't do any teaching. I go Taki. He has his what he calls intensives. It's all like hyper fast. Honestly, I need to put that man on 0.5 because he talks so fast. And everyone that works for him talks really fast. And they're all from Australia. So I'm just like, I'm sitting here going like, oh, what are you saying?
I thought I
Saying you
talked fast.
people.
Okay.
Oh my God. Like this guy is like off the hook. And he's making like side jokes. And then anyway, but again, it's teaching, 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 teaching. And do not get me wrong. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And I've implemented some of the funnels that he suggested for like making appointments. I think they're great, but I didn't learn it there. I learned it when it was done and I went back and I listened to the recordings. The real best value I got was when they stuck me in a group with 5 other guys who were all at my level of business and we just shot the shit
Yeah,
and we
that's
talked about each
exactly
other's
right.
businesses and we helped each other. And that's what I like. I just want to go back and I want to find those people because like I'm inventing so much of because I'm morphing my business from people hiring me for me into people hiring my model for what it does for them.
Yeah.
And that is a seismic shift. It's
Yeah,
painful.
exactly. So we get, that's what I I think the people are hiring me for that guidance and implementation and insight to their
Mhm.
business. Yes, I'll bring in my heart-centered marketing system, my methodology, but every time somebody says, "Well, do I have to do this like that?" I'm like, "No, it's a framework. I'm going to show you what I've done. Take what you
Mhm.
want. Don't and just leave the rest, and we'll adapt to whatever you want. But what is it about you?"
Mhm.
So that's why I think that my masterminds work and Atlas works, which is the program that I've been running for now 4 years straight,
Yep.
over and over and
Yep.
over again.
Mhm.
The reason it works is
Mhm.
because, well, is it a group coaching program to help me, launch a group coaching? Yeah, but it's not really that, because what it's going to help you do is, like, you've learned basically all the stuff that's already there. All I'm doing is putting it into a different kind of a framework or a pattern so you can see it a little bit clearer. But more importantly is that you're getting guidance and insight from not only because it's a small group all the time, and myself. We're there to
Mhm. Mhm.
handhold you through. So it's kind of that mastermind feel. They're not really
Yep.
accountable. They don't come in with
Totally.
accountability, but there's an implementation
Mhm.
piece all the time, and that's why Atlas works. Now,
Mhm.
when it comes to the mastermind piece of it, like, I love that. I love the fact that what am I here to do, and being accountable to somebody else, because I know that even growing through my major pain between 2016 and 19, I had a mastermind group of just there was four of us there, and that was it was kind of accountability every single week.
Mhm.
But without that group, I'm telling you, Rebecca, I would not have been able to get to where I am today. And it wasn't
Mhm.
really because of this is, I guess, another tangent, but I think it needs to be said. It wasn't really about the implementation of new tools and frameworks and all that. It was more about the support that I needed, because I was basically in
Mhm.
there bawling my eyes out every week and complaining and like
Mhm.
this, I don't know what's going on and what's working. And if it wasn't for those people to support me, I'm telling you, I probably
Mhm.
wouldn't be here. Like, wow.
Yeah.
So it's not only that you get accountability and you get pushed and you get like challenged and all that stuff, but you also get people who really truly care about you. And the only reason
Yep.
that they're going to do that is because they know your shit. They know what's going on in your life. So you have to be vulnerable. You
Mhm.
have to come to these things, in my opinion, and say, this is
Mhm.
what it's about. It's about growth. If you want to go
Mhm.
to a group meeting and collaborate and just shoot the stuff for every once in a while, fantastic. But is that really going to help you grow your business? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Not really. Like I don't. There's. I could go to conferences, right? Like Taki's got this thing in Fiji in August, and I'm like, can I just get it from here? Like, do I have to fly halfway across the world,
Right.
to be able to go get that? And it's not because like I don't see value in it or whatever, but if it's just teaching, I can get that here.
Right.
Right? The
Exactly right.
reason that people want to go to my in-person mastermind is because it is for the people. Is literally for those conversations they have. I try to end as early in the day as I possibly can so that everyone can go and talk to each other, hang out with each other, whether it's in the pool, whether it's at dinner, whether it's in the hot tub or for a walk or a jog, or we had 3 golf carts in Punta Cana, and our team building unplanned team building was when we got pulled over by security because we were on the wrong road. Whoops. Uh, B, we got lost, and C, the golf cart died. One of the 3 golf cart died, and so we were lost in Punta Cana in the middle of the night with a thing that didn't work. And this is where you're just like, thank God that there was a butler. We had a butler. We had 2 butlers, and he came and found us and saved us. It was a really, really fun time.
Love it.
That's what they come for, right? They
Yeah,
come
it's
for that.
experience.
And yeah, like the farewell dinner we had, I was at one end of the table and this other woman's at the other, and she's giggling. And I mean, okay, that's mischief giggles. What's happening? So she texts me and she's like, we're getting a birthday cake for Tara, who I had just learned her birthday is February the 18th. And I'm like, it's January, but whatever. Anyway, so they get this thing. She liked coffee ice cream. So this is how into each other's lives they got. They found out that Tara loves coffee ice cream, like psychotically loves coffee ice cream. It is definitely not her birthday, and she's got a wicked sense of humor. And so they told the staff to go get a big thing of coffee ice cream and stick a candle in it. And they're like, well, the candle won't stay, so can we put cake? They're like, nope, ice cream. And so they walk over with this giant sparkler and this bowl of ice cream, and they've got this huge boom box. This guy's like, dance partying his way over. No one knows what's happening. So everyone's clapping. We start videotaping her and she's clapping like the rest of us. She's like, oh, this is fun. What's happening? And then we sing her happy birthday. And she's just like, what? And then she just went with it, right? That's what people go for, right? Those
Yeah.
tiny little things. Heidi, who loves sunrises. So we all go and watch the fucking sunrise, right?
Yeah.
Tara, who loves coffee ice cream. Steven, who loved the little jelly octopus candies that I made sure were there for him, and that apparently he ate all of them because he loved them. And everyone saved the octopus candies if you found a bag somewhere, because we're finding them everywhere. It's like, okay, Steven's snacks, or make sure you bring them over. These are the tiny little things that we have. We have an ongoing debate on how to fold socks. It's a funny little thing. The people bond over how to fold socks. I know. And so this is why you and I love our businesses so much, because we see the light in others and we want everyone to shine in everyone else's life. Because sometimes on some days, my light is a bit dim. It's just a little bit dim. I light myself up because of the light of others. And
100%.
That is what I do, because there's going to be days when my life feels a little bit dark. I mean, there's days when my life feels really bright. And someone else, I was talking to the neuroscientist on Sunday, and he was just off. And I'm like, Victor, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I just like, that's how I felt all day, just yuck, And so he was feeling so good. So I pumped him up and made him all feel excited and stuff like that. And then he showed up today and he nailed it. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
So those are the things. And again, when you're looking at, because this whole conversation is about empire building. How do we build empires?
Yeah.
You have to know what's driving you, right? You have to know what it's for. You need to have some sort of a framework that you can bring to people. Because even though, you have a framework and people are like, well, it's not exactly me, but you're just like, you just twist it, right? And turn it and you adapt it to somebody else.
It's the foundation of what I do. Like it always comes back to certain things that I could say, well, let's work on this piece of it. Does that work for you, or whatever it is? And I remember even, sorry to cut you off, but it was, I remember back a couple of years ago where someone, I think it was at one of Giovanni's event actually, where we went out to dinner or something like that, and we were talking about all that kind of stuff, and again talking about bonding and getting to know each other. And I'll never forget this, because it was probably the third or fourth time I heard this, but this one really landed. And it was, this person said to me, Joey, you have a lot of really good knowledge and a lot of good information, and you're really smart about what you do. I'm not trying to paint myself into like this big person, but she said this to me, and I'm like, thanks. And she goes, the only thing you're missing is you don't have frameworks. And I'll never forget that, because that's when it landed for me. It was like I could piece everything together and ask me questions, and I'll answer these kind of things. But that was like the fourth or fifth time I've heard that. And for that moment, it was like, I better start putting frameworks together, and it changed my life, because I was never that framework kind of person. And now I can see the beauty of it, because everything foundationally goes back to my framework, my heart-centered marketing, whatever it is that I do. But it's not like it's a formula. I think that frameworks and formulas are completely different. Like a formula, you miss a piece of the formula, it's kind of going to blow up. Like it's not going to really work, right?
Yeah.
So
no, not a good scene.
Let's get to the comments for a second here.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So when someone is in the decision-making stage, isn't it okay to ask for input opinions from friends, colleagues who have knowledge and experience related to the decision? And maybe that is sometimes a distraction, and sometimes it's gathering info to make a decision. Yeah, these are great contexts. So I'll let you go first, Rebecca.
My favorite concept is something I got from Ray Dalio's book. What is it called? I can't remember. It's like, anyway, his book, and it's called Radical Open-Mindedness. So what I like to do, like the getting other people's opinions and inputs can very much muddy the water when you're trying to figure something out. So there's when you want to ask for someone's opinion, when there's a decision to be made, you have to have pretty well worked through all of the bits and pieces. So there's not a lot of doubt in what it is that you're doing, but you're doing a really solid double check. So the radical open-mindedness system is you take whatever it is that you want to do or you invented or whatever, you stick it on the table in front of a bunch of people and you're like, find the holes. So
Yeah.
you're not necessarily asking for opinions. You're asking them to find the weakness,
Right.
find the spot that maybe you missed, something that you didn't think about, as opposed to what's your opinion, which can then take it, someone's opinion is their perspective
Right.
full of what they would do, what they're afraid of. And what can sometimes happen if you have a little bit of doubt in what you're doing, someone's fear can very much become your own. So you have to be really careful where in the creative and decision-making process you're bringing people in. I like to bring people in once I have built something. I have worked through my self-doubt. I have worked through the kinks. I have done my research. You can look to experts or books or all that kind of stuff. And I've kind of worked it out to the point where like, okay, I think I've got this. What do you think? Right? That's when you can get something really valuable. And that's where you accept or reject what they say. You don't have to take what they say as something you're going to do.
Yeah.
That's generally my approach. I prefer that the radically open-mindedness. You've already gone through the creative process. You've already created something. You kind of worked through some of the kinks, and now you're ready to make sure before you take this to market that it's as strong as it possibly can be.
Yeah, and I agree 100% what you said, and I'll just add to this where from my experience in this is that I used to hide behind decisions and let someone else
Mm.
make the decision for me because if it didn't work, I could blame them. Right? It was like
Yep.
so that's where I see a lot of this happening is when somebody's making a decision, they don't want to be blamed. They don't want to make that
Mhm.
choice to say,
Mhm.
I made the wrong choice, right? And
Yeah.
so to your point, if you've done all that work and then you say to experienced people, where are the holes in this? What am I not seeing? What are you seeing? Like, what's your experience in doing
Mhm.
this kind of thing? Completely different thing. But I find, at least in my world, Rebecca, that when it comes to decision making, it's more of tell me what to do, Rebecca. Here's A, here's
Mm.
B. What should I do? Right? And
Mhm.
I get asked that question a lot of times, and I'm not saying we just never ask that question. And my job at the coach would be like, okay, tell me more about what this is all about. Like, like you said, where's the vision? What are we doing? What's it all about? Like all these
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
Give me some context of why you're trying to make this decision and why you're at this fork in the
Mhm.
road, and then I can give you some input here. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to say, well, especially if I was at that fork in the road, I'd say, well, here's what I did and here's what I figured out because this is where I was
Mhm.
going. But
Mhm.
most,
Mhm.
if you're listening to this and you're thinking, and you're asking other people's opinions because you're afraid to make a decision, whether you admit it or not, or whether you know it or not, that's a completely different thing. And that to me is
Yep.
complete distraction. It's avoidance,
Yep.
right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I find sometimes if you so this I look at this kind of in two ways. So like the whole figure it out and then take it for the radical open-mindedness discussion,
Yeah,
or have a really, really solid, clear idea of the outcome that you're looking for.
right.
And then cascade for ideas. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? And then you put things together, but you are never, 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 never unclear on the actual outcome. Like I am morphing and changing and adding to my mastermind. Like previously to, I don't know, last week, you can only come in at two times of the year. You can come in January, you can come in September. But what if somebody wants to come in April? Well, they can't. Well, I decided that was dumb, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm creating
Mm-hmm.
continuous enrollment, and I'm going from one event to two, and I'm raising my prices. But so all these different little things, and I've gone to the group several times, going, "Hey guys, you've experienced my program now because it's only 9 months old, 8 months old." Anyway, and I'm like, "You've experienced this far. If I was going to go this route, right, to create all these different things, what have you liked, what have you not liked, what would you do, what are some of your visions and stuff like that." And some of the ideas they come up with are like, absolutely amazing, or they're confirming. And most often they are confirming something that I thought was really important, a really, really good idea. So again, whichever way, either super sure on, or you figured out your thing, radical mindedness, or you're like absolutely certain this is what it needs to look like. What are some of the various ideas that we can use to get there? And then you kind of call down from there. Sorry, there was
Yeah.
something on there that had my name on it and I didn't see it.
Yeah. We're just giving you props, of course. That's
Oh, makes
you're
sense.
awesome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It makes sense. Does everybody know who I am?
That's okay. I got to get it from you guys because I definitely don't get it from the kids.
You're
They're
awesome. You're
like, shut
awesome.
up, Mom.
It kind of reminds me of, like, again, this decision making is such this big topic. We should do like uh,
Oh my
a
God.
whole show on this. But
Yep.
my mind goes to when I'm listening to Dan Martell, because he's my hero today, and he's talking about in the hiring process, because I'm like so involved in that right now, like hiring the right people and the assistants and all these things. And he was telling a
Hmm.
story, and he said he hired somebody for whatever it is, whatever department it was, and the person came to him and said, "Hey, listen, here's what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think?" And Dan said, I just loved it. He goes, I hired you to figure this out. Like, what do you think we should do? That's not what that's not what
Hmm.
I do, right? It's not
Hmm.
my job to do that. It's not only the job, but I keep on remembering that. I'm thinking, well, that's what somebody's asking. Like, they're asking for sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they're looking for a way out to make that decision,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yep.
And they're
They
like,
are.
well, you told me to do this and it didn't work out. Well, okay,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have a term for that. I have a term for that because I work with a lot of like brokers, CEOs, managers, and they have a lot of people that just look to them, and I call them baby birds. They're like,
okay.
"What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?" Right? And I've got this funny story, but because that's exactly what I tell them to do. You flip it to them, and it's like, "What do you think you should do?" Because 99% of the time they know, they're just
Yep.
too afraid to make the decision themselves and too afraid to take accountability and responsibility for themselves.
Right.
And I remember I went to Kansas and I was going there to train the whole brokerage the next day. There's probably about 30 agents, and I met them all in the hotel bar, and they were all just there. And one of the ladies came up and asked the gentleman, the manager, "Where do you want to go for dinner?" And I'm just like, "Don't do it. Don't do." She knows where they need to go for dinner. Do not get the answer. And he tried so hard. He's like, "Well, what do you think we should do?" She's like, "I don't know. What do you think we should?" And she just kept throwing it back at him. So because I had this thought, I'm like, "Tacos. You want to go for tacos?" And she's like, "Okay." And she ran away. And then I'm like, next day, and I'm like, "Listen, lady, like we are not doing that anymore." And I told them about the baby bird syndrome, and I actually told all of them their own story the next day about how they're not thinking for themselves, which makes the whole brokerage weaker. And they went through the whole process of actually, how do you think for yourself, which is go look it up, go ask somebody else, right? There's 1,000 other resources, or just trust your instinct and just go for it. So,
Yeah. Collie, I think this is you. You're saying that the hardest part about making a decision is deciding to make the decision, but not making a decision
yep.
is still making a decision. Yeah, I
Yeah, you can't
couldn't.
get out of it.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like
you're
you're
kind of
deciding on
screwed.
something, right? You're still
Yeah, there's a
deciding.
choice in there somewhere. Yep. I
I
always say you
remember.
always have a choice. Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
do, and
Just really quickly, I know you and I keep interrupting each other because we'll just do this forever.
it's okay.
It's you can live with something, you can change something, or you can leave it. Live with it, change it, or leave it. You always have a choice, and do not tell me you don't. Right? So, oh well, my boss is really mean. Well, leave. Well, I can't because okay, it's hard. Yes, it's not ideal, but you always have that choice. Can you live with it? Can you change it, or do you have to leave it? And this is how I've gone through a lot of my life, and it's been really helpful for when I'm trying to tell myself, well, I don't have a choice. I don't give myself that choice to say, I don't have a choice. Over to you.
Yeah, no, and I was gonna just jump on that where it's like one of the ways where a lot of not a lot, but enough times this has happened that it's become a pattern or something that I've recognized is that let's say somebody comes to me for help on whatever it is they want to change something, and
Mm-hmm.
they first of all want me to make the decision, and then they also want to guarantee, is this going to work? And I'm like, I don't really know. I'm pretty sure I've gotten some results, but I have no idea because I don't know who you are and what you're all about and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, well, I need a guarantee. And so I'm like, well, how about this? If you have been living with this for the last 3 years, 5 years, and you can't live with it, and you're coming to me for help or coming to somebody for help in the decision, then isn't it better to make a decision now to do something for the next 3 months? And if it doesn't work and it blows up, then at least you'll know. But at least you're not in a position where you were like, if you continue to do this same thing you're doing for the next 3 months, you'll still be in the exact same position you are, right? That's the way I look at life.
Yeah.
This is the way I make decisions. It's like, well, is this going to work? I have no idea, Rebecca. I have no idea. But then I'm like, well, because a lot of things don't work out. Tell you what, guess what? If you're watching the show right now, guess what? 85% of the stuff you're going to do ain't going to work out, right? But that's progression. It's
That's bad.
progression, right? So,
Yes, I have a bucket for that stuff. I'm going to show you. I give everybody one of these buckets. Hang on a second. This is the most important bucket anyone could ever own. Are you ready? For stuff that doesn't work, you put it in.
I'm expecting one of those to show up on my door in the next couple of days.
Oh.
Okay.
I have two. I have actually a lot more.
I love it. I love it.
And more over there. Because this is part of my mastermind. My mastermind, everyone has to write their little fuck it notes, right?
Yeah.
They write them on depending on. So I wasn't allowed to use fire in Punta Cana because apparently the whole island will burn to a crisp. So I got these little tiny pieces of wood, and so while we're there, they wrote down whatever like self-defeating message they had, like I'm not good enough, nobody wants to listen to me, blah blah blah. And at the end, we snap them. We're like, have drinks. We're like, fuck it, snap, and it goes into a big pile. Where I am allowed to have fire, they write it on a piece of paper and we burn it in a fire at the end. And it's a closing ritual that I absolutely love. And then everybody goes home with their fuck it buckets. And then actually we had someone stole a fuck it bucket from someone else. And then we had to be like, you have to have, like, come on, we're adults here. I'll send you another one if you really want one. It's like a bucket with sticky letters on them. Like, come on, make it yourself. Anyway, so it's pretty fun. But yeah, so that's where all those messages go. Everyone should have a fucking bucket.
I love it. Do you want to read that one?
Sure.
I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see it, right?
I can see it. I just need my glasses. In recent past, I wanted to be told what to do for many reasons. I hear you loud and clear. That was me for most of my life. You know, don't make me make a decision. I was terrified of it. It's been a lot better since. Awesome. I started to make my own decisions. I've made some bad ones when I didn't ask for help. And that's true. Some of my worst decisions are the ones that I made alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, again, groups are so important, right? I never felt I belonged to something. So this has been an interesting rehab for me. It's been a very interesting journey because, you know, making friends has always been difficult for me, or at least that's what I've told myself. P.S. That was my fuck it message. The group made me snap when I was in Punta Cana. Like, they're like, you keep telling yourself that you can't make friends. That's bullshit. They're like, not fine. That's it.
By the way, the video editors, we have to tag this one on the YouTube for the monetization piece because it's going to be a little bit different. It's all good. It's all good.
I did a keynote yesterday and you're like, why didn't you swear on stage? And I'm like,
don't apologize.
I'm not supposed to? Oh, okay.
Just got to remember, because if I hit the right, if I hit the wrong monetized thing on YouTube, that ain't going to be good for me.
No. Yeah. Do you know, interestingly, that half of the people at my mastermind said one of the deciding factors of hiring me is because I repeatedly say the F word.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm like, oh. Just play it.
So, okay. What was this one? Back to the better. You started making my own decisions. I've made some bad. Yeah. This goes both ways for me because I've seen where, again, myself, I would blame someone else in the group to say, well, you guys told me to do this and it didn't work out. And because they didn't take responsibility for my own life, that was it. It was like, and I didn't see the forest for the trees. It was like, well, this actually got you further. Even when I say, like, here's another example, a total ADD moment, but maybe I'll bring it together. So when people come to me for help, it's usually because they've been through a lot of bad coaches. People have screwed them over. Like they're in this place where they just don't trust coaches. No matter what they say, that Joey, I like you and this and that, they still don't trust me. I get it. And I totally, I'm compassionate about that, right? And so then we might be working together and then 3 months go by, 6 months go by, and they're like, well, it's really not working because I have to do a lot of unpacking, a lot of unlearning, a lot of breaking the eggs to make the omelet, right? I have to do a lot of that stuff. Like I said, I'm cleaning up a lot of stuff. And then I might get the odd, I've been at this for 5 years and it's not working. Dude, you and I have only been together for 6 months. So you can't bring the baggage and blame me for what's not happening, right? And so that's where the decisions come in, like, well, these guys or those coaches told me to do this, and now I'm taking some of that blame for that, which is totally not fair, right?
You don't get to do that. You don't get to spread me with that poison. Nuh-uh, not taking it. I know. I've had to toss that back over the fence. I'm like, I don't want that. That's poop on your side, not my side. Right? Keep
Right.
that on your side of the fence. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why people like really try to avoid making decisions. And one of the beauties of coaching is we get to ask the really hard questions, right? We get to be like, so where all do you think that comes from? Right? And start unpacking, getting them to recognize, like the woman today who has been really scattered and all over the place, recognize that the way she was looking at time, she had not also attributed energy
Mm,
because she was expending a lot of energy. And so instead of looking at where she's spending her time, where she's spending her energy helps her actually manage the time better. So it was a really interesting kind of funnel or I guess path she went down to figure that out. But we have to like that was the same one. I'm just like, you have to promise the next time we get together, you're not going to come back with, I didn't do it because I got distracted by, I don't even give a shit what. Like, I don't care what the answer is. It's just not going to be good enough. So, and some people can take that and they're like, you know what, you're absolutely right. And then some people are still not ready for that message. And they'll be like, well, I think this program is not working for me. And they give you the same excuses that you've had. But I never take that stuff personally. You just
no,
can't because
no, they're just not.
it's not about you,
Yeah, they're just
right?
not ready
It's
for you.
about
Like that's where, like I'm saying in my dream clients, like I know who they are and exactly what their
mm,
mindset is all about. I know that even when they buy Atlas, 85% of those people, here's $3,000, whatever it is, but in their brain, whether they know it or not, they're saying, I still don't trust you. Prove it to me. And I totally
mhm,
am stepping into that role. I get it. As long as we understand what our role is and where our superpowers are, if you give me the chance to help you, I will definitely help you. But there are
sure.
people
Mm-hmm.
who get to that point where like, this is not for me. And I had to learn that. This is one of the things that, Giovanni, I love him. Like, this is one of the things that he recognized in me. And I didn't even know that, where him and Stephanie, they actually told me, and they're like, you're really brilliant at calling these people out in this certain way, because this is where my superpowers are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to wave pom poms all the time. It's not that I'm always
Mm-hmm.
negative and all these other kind of things, but I call you out, like, hey, let's get these things moving, right? And and
Right.
there's certain people, like you said, who can take that, and other people who are just like, no, I'm just going to hide behind it and not do anything. But it's kind of like they're pretending to be in business, right? They're like,
Mm-hmm.
they're not really doing anything. So unless
No, they're
you're
not, but they
moving,
think they are.
yeah, they think
Yeah,
they,
they're imitating and pretending. Yeah, and that's what a lot of people do. But they're not actually trying for themselves. Their heart isn't in it. There's a facade. They're plastic, right?
yeah,
And there's no beating heart under the plastic. It's just air, right? And that's hard to get people to recognize that that's how they've been living. I had to make that, recognition that I spend most of my life imitating
yeah,
um, everyone because I didn't, like, being autistic, I didn't know how to react to people. Coming from the cult, I didn't know, I don't know anything, right? And so I would just try to get by like I thought I was supposed to get by based on what other people were doing without asking myself, but what do you want to do? And that is still a hard question for me, which is funny because that bucket stuff, um, I'm always pushing them. Don't forget to write your messages. Everyone's got their bucket. Do you think I brought a bucket for myself? Yeah.
it's uncanny that
No,
we're
I did
like
not.
that. I know. I know what the answer is. It's just uncanny that we see it all in everybody else, but we just don't. When we look at ourselves, we forget it or we don't see it, and that's why it's so brilliant to have these conversations with friends like you and
Mhm,
colleagues and people and our
mhm,
coaching groups and all these things, so people can see us the way that we see
mhm.
others. I could look at
Yep.
it and I get stuck so many times, and if it wasn't for people like yourself and just the groups and all these things, then I would not be advancing all the time. And I love being pushed. I love being
Mhm,
challenged. But and
mhm, mhm.
so if you're not willing to be challenged, then how are you going to grow? Like, one of the
What are you
biggest
here for?
challenges, yeah, like,
Like, how do you live?
and it's hard like that. I love going back to Dan Sullivan because, the question about, he has the 4 C's. Are you familiar with his 4 C's formula?
Yes. Mhm,
Like
mhm,
that's it for me. That's all I need to know. And it's kind of when I go back to that and tell people this, and well, I need to know, I have that when I get confidence and I'm going to go do this, I go, yeah, well, that's the last thing you're going to get. If you don't have
Mm-hmm.
all of the other three, you're never going to
Mm-hmm.
get confidence. And the first thing is going to be the commitment. And then the second one is the courage, which is belief, basically, right? And those are the
Mm-hmm.
two
Yep.
foundational things. And if you don't have those, you're screwed. Doesn't matter, because you're going to say, well, I need the confidence to go do it. No, you need the courage and you need the commitment to go do it first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where
Mm-hmm.
everybody fails. That's where everybody fails. That's
Yep.
why I told you, I think one of our
Yep.
first calls, I said to you that, in my masterminds, it was always back to that belief that you can tell me anything you want, but everything comes back to belief. No matter what it is, you're right. You can have lip
Yep.
service for whatever it is. And when the crap hits the fan, your belief in you, in the thing you're doing, in your crew, in your friends, all of that stuff is going to come to the surface. Your character is going to
Mm-hmm.
show. So it doesn't matter. And that's
Mm-hmm.
that's all about belief, right? So you can say, I'm
Mm-hmm.
committed to this. Okay, well then prove it to me. So then the
Yeah.
first crash happens, are you still going? Are you still committed like you said that you were 6 months
Yeah.
ago? Are you still,
Mm-hmm.
because you're stepping into fear. You don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You just put $10,000
Mm-hmm.
in Facebook ads and they crashed. They didn't work. Are you still going to go do it again? Right? Did you learn anything? Like all these
Mm-hmm.
kind of things. And so that to me is like the foundational framework of everything that we're doing here. Powerful,
Yeah.
powerful
You know
stuff.
what's the interesting thing about commitment? I was just talking in my keynote yesterday that our brains are wicked spin doctors when it comes to commitment because we say things that sound like we're committed. I
Mm-hmm.
need to, I want, I wish, I hope, I should, I will, I'm going to, all of those things, with, whatever comes afterwards, is your brain does not actually fire. It's still like sitting there, eating bonbons and cupcakes, sitting on the couch going, let me know when you need me, because that part of that commitment part of your brain where the motivation comes from and the action taking does not fire when you say things like I want, I wish, I hope, I need, I should, all of those worlds. There's only one type of language that actually fires that part of your brain. It's the I am.
Mm-hmm.
I am. Or interestingly, from this neuroscientist, at the right before you go to sleep. So let's say, for instance, back up like a week and a half, right? So it's right before my mastermind. All of my doubt is just like, is this going to work? Is anyone, going to back out at the last minute? Do I have enough food? Have I ordered the right car? Like, blah, all this kind of stuff starts, and all the self doubt then it comes in. So what the neuroscientist said was right before you go to bed, tell yourself that it's done, right?
Mm.
So, oh my God, wasn't this the most amazing mastermind in the whole wide world? Look at all of the amazing conversations that happened. Look at the amazing way things that went. Everything went perfectly and without a hitch. Da, da, da. It sounds insane because clearly it hasn't happened. But when you're anxious about something and you really want to make sure you stay committed to something, by telling yourself that it's already done, you go to sleep and your subconscious actually works through the problem. So you actually wake up with a fresh set of ideas or a greater sense of confidence and commitment to what it is that you're doing. So the combination of I am language, right? It's like I am, $1 million coach. I am, impacting 1 million people. I am bringing people together. I am helping people learn. I am, I am launching this marketing thing. And then couple that with that really receptive time of right before you go to bed, telling yourself that it's done so your subconscious can kick in and do some work. Like I thought it was a bunch of hogwash, but it's not. Like I
I
did
hear
that
you.
because I can get really anxious about things. And I just, whenever, and it's usually I wake up in the middle of the night for whatever reason, I wake up anxious. It's
Mm-hmm.
this awful thing that clearly I've just taught myself to do it for years and years of having done this. And this is how I'm combating that. So when I wake up anxious about something, I
Mm.
either, what am I going to do about it? Or, hey, isn't it cool because it's already done? And then that anxiety goes away and I go back to sleep. So it's two ways of really helping people because that commitment thing, it's everything. That's why my mastermind is built the way it is. That's why your business is built the way it is. We try to add in all these elements that help people with commitments because we suck at it so bad when we're
Mm-hmm.
committing to ourselves. And you and
Mm-hmm.
I can't teach someone self-worth. We
No.
can't. But we can rally the troops. We can bring everybody together and we can do stuff. Like as we've been talking, my Slack channel has been pinging away with the group, just bibbly babbling to themselves about whatever. I don't know if it's socks. Still, it could be the sock conversation. But also, people have been posting their new wall art, which was a big square that said "fuck yeah" that we all signed, and she put it up on her wall. And then another woman, oh, what was hers? It was something from today's session that she thought was really powerful. So she wrote it on one of those big stickies and put it on her wall, and
Yeah.
those kinds
Yeah.
of things. So yeah,
You know,
it's cool stuff. So I'm really glad you brought up the Dan Sullivan stuff. He's really cool. Sorry, go on.
no, I just wanted to add to the language piece of it, because I know what you're talking about there, and that when it comes to the manifestation, or whatever you want to call it, the beliefs and all that, that was when I started working or with John Assaraf. I think I told you that story way back in 2007. I think I first took his course and everything, and then he was in my mastermind like 2011. So like, wow, but that's not the
Mm-hmm.
point. I learned from, I think it was Jonah Berger. I think I got the name right, about this language pattern, and it's very powerful. It's like when you go into a situation and you say, "Well, I can't do that," right? Or even,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, I just can't. I can't do that. I can't do that."
Right.
And you're trying to make a change. And this is
Mm-hmm.
like, I'll give you an example of whatever you're trying to lose weight, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you go to your friend's house and they're ordering pizza, and they're like, "Hey, you want something?" You're like, "I can't. I'm on a diet," right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's putting that pressure on you of like, I'm making this decision, back to this decision. Like, I can't do this. It's on me.
Mm-hmm.
However, and
Mm-hmm.
that puts pressure on you. Like, well, maybe I'll just have one slice or whatever. But if you switch the word "can't" to "don't," it's a completely different thing. I don't eat. I
That's
don't
an
eat pizza
ownership
anymore.
thing.
I don't eat pizza anymore.
Yeah,
Right?
that's a character. That's an
It's
identity thing.
huge.
That's a
Right.
not who I am.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. I tell. Oh, that's so good. I love that because I tell a story about the same kind of thing. I'll tell you the story. Let me know if it's the same thing. Two people walking down the street, both trying to quit smoking. Someone comes up and asks them both, "Do you have a light?" One says, "No, I'm trying to quit." And the other one says, "No, I'm not a smoker." Which one
Right.
actually succeeds?
Right. I'm
I'm
not
not a
this.
smoker, right?
Right.
Because the
Exactly.
one who says I'm trying to quit, I am still a smoker. That is still their identity. So you have to
Yeah.
tell yourself, no, that's just not who I am, right? So people who want to eat healthy, I'm a healthy eater. Adopt the persona, the identity of the thing you want to be, and tell yourself that. Like the language, I mean, language is so important. I use such bad language against myself for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And the damage, sometimes I wonder if it's irreparable. I mean, in my darkest moments, I'm like, am I ever going to get over this? Right. And it just shows up in some really weird ways. Like when, again, we're going through the fucking bucket thing and everyone's like, what's yours? I blanked.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely went, "Ugh," and I looked at my husband and I'm like, what do I suck at? What's my problem? Right. And he came up with doozies. And I'm just like, oh, why do you have to be so good at this? Because he knows what I need to snap. Right. But still, that sometimes, even though I do this for a living, I'm a performance coach, I've done a lot of healing, right? There are still things I just choke up on them. And it's wonderful to have those moments to shine back to me. Here's some work that still needs to be done, girlfriend.
Oh, 100%,
Still got,
Rebecca. Like, I'm
still
like
got
I'm
some
like
work.
you. I am always in, like, when I get the light shone, whatever it is, shined on me, whatever. I choke up as well. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I have no idea what this is, especially when it comes to the vision parts and stuff. I'm like, I don't know.
Oh.
Right. So I need time to think on my own and then piece it
Mhm.
all together and then come back and I look like a hero. But in the moment, I'm like,
Yeah.
this is not for me right now. Like, I panic in that kind of situation where I'm under that pressure to think of,
Yep. Absolute
what is it
blank.
for you?
Total blank. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
I
absolutely. So I'm glad I'm not alone on that one. But what's really beautiful about the group is, they also, you can take things personally, and I'm like, yep, okay, I can take this, and I have such a hard time. I want to turn myself inside out. But, I say back to them, there's one particular gentleman in the group who has been my client for like almost 4 years now. And I said, thank you for holding me accountable to this. I said, it was
right.
born of trauma. It's a work in progress. But every time I'm reminded, that I'm still doing that, and it was a very specific case that he was talking about. I'm just like, okay. And, so when I start to go down that path of taking it personally because of something, it's silence, right? When people, they're not responsive, right? Or they don't talk to me as much, like, especially in a group when I'm, with everybody together and I don't hear from them as much. I start, well, what did I do? What have I done?
Yes.
What did I say? It all becomes fault. It's my fault. Whatever it is, it's my fault. And I lived there for a long, long time, and it's still here. But when I start to go into that, I'm like, oh, hang on a second. I remember those words of, you don't. It's silence is not rejection. And I'm like, yes, right. Silence is
Yeah,
not rejection, and it's also not my fault. I didn't do
no.
anything.
And there's one place where I always go to when I get in that zone of, dang it, should I have said that? Did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Whatever. And I'm always growing. I'm not saying that I'm perfect at all. There's a lot of growth that happens. But I take back to this one moment when I got a client, one of my very dear friends, client back in the real estate days, and we were in this mastermind together. Used to do masterminds. I don't know if I told you this story, but I'll tell you again very quickly, for the people who haven't heard it. But I used to do like monthly free masterminds in the real estate space, just like, okay. And they used to think that they were coming there to learn about real estate. That was like, oh, I'm coming to this mastermind. But they had no idea it was like a personal, okay, on the hot seat type of thing, right? So anyway, this couple was in there, and they thought it was like a networking event where they could stand up and kind of sell their stuff. Didn't turn out that way. So basically, long story short, I ripped her apart. Like, this is a total stranger to me, and she's talking about life balance and stuff like that, and I just ripped her apart. Like, we went through at least 4 full scabs of pages of all her stuff that she did, and I'm like, okay, where's your life balance here? Like, where do you, with your family and everything else? It was basically, well, this is there, and is your phone with you? Well, of course, I have a business, and like, that just completely tore her to shreds, right? Yeah. So this was when I was first starting to get into coaching, and my friend, Nashi, I don't know if you know her, but anyway, she knows me. Like, she knows that I'm this like direct type of person, but this is to the level of like, right? It was so direct that the whole room just was completely silent, because I looked at her, and again, she's a stranger, and went through all this stuff, and she's telling me all these excuses, and I looked at the room and I said, can anyone say the word delusional? Right? I just called her out.
Ooh.
Yeah. So everybody left, and she's like, wow, that was a really strong one. And I'm like, yeah. So I went home, and I was contemplating whether I should be in this work. Like, I was like, maybe I went too far. But I'm telling you, it was like this universal moment for me, because that came to me in the moment. I can't explain it to you, but it was just kind of like my muse was there telling me what to say and what not to say. And I just said it. And I thought my whole thing was like over before it even began. I'm like,
what a terrible feeling. I've done that. Oh,
you know what I'm
Joey,
saying?
I've done that. Yeah. Because I do the same thing. I'm a straight shooter, like, well, this is what it is. Like, why do we have to beat around the bush? And it's not beating around the bush. We just can't beat people with the actual answer.
Well, here's how this ended, because the next day, and again, that was the only night, one of the only nights that, I was up I couldn't sleep, and I was crying a lot of times. And then the next morning, I get this message on Facebook from her, and she's like, holy crap, like, last night you completely changed my life, and we've been looking for a coach, and we couldn't find one, and what you did was incredible. How do I work with you? It was like, what? It was like, what? Yeah. So every time I think about, I'm not saying I never make mistakes, but every time I get to the point where I'm like, should I have gone that way? Should I have pushed? Right? I always go back to that moment and think, and there was another time I won't tell you about, because we don't have the time. I know you have to go. But there was another time that it got even worse. Like, I'll tell you this story another time. It'll freak you out. But it was like, I did it again in another mastermind with a couple.
Oh my God.
And it was like, yeah. So, and I'm like, and then at the end of like, she was that person really quickly. She was calling me every name in the book. And then I'm like, my career is over, because all the people in the room, I'm like, maybe they'll be coaching clients, forget it. At the end of that, we hugged it out. Like, she was like, you're my best friend. And then I'll tell you the story, like, I'll continue it later on, but it was an amazing part. And those two moments of my life were like, anytime I get anxiety about whether I should be doing something, is I go back to those moments and say, no, you're in the right place. You can learn,
Mm-hmm.
Joey. You can be better,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to
Mm-hmm.
be who you are, which is, I think, what this is
Yep.
really what we're talking about today. If we sum it all up,
Mm-hmm.
is be who you are,
Mm-hmm.
get into a place, understand where you want to go, and have the support
Mm-hmm.
around you to build the empire. Is that right?
Yep. And absolutely the support, the framework, the model, and that unwavering commitment, so
Yeah.
that when the barn burns down, because you're going to light it on fire a couple times, right? You're just like, well, just get out the marshmallows and make the best of it.
Yeah.
And then rebuild it again, right? So, and when you have like those three things that he was talking about, the time, the money, and the meaning, in terms of like where you're going with all of this, just even broad strokes, it just gives you sort of just something to kind of aim at. And then you build stuff around it. So, and you love what you do. I love what I do. I'm always, finesse, 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 right? Because I know I'm
Yeah.
doing the kind of work I want to do. But the same with you, there's the scaling piece of the puzzle that I am now solving for very, very carefully, quickly, but carefully, because I want to maintain that whole model, that framework, that core intact. I must keep
Mm-hmm.
that intact. And if we can all go through life with our core intact, always, we can change and modify and stuff. AI coming into the middle of things,
Mm-hmm.
that's changing stuff too, but it doesn't have to alter who we are and our commitment to ourselves and our commitment to our craft and to our people. So yeah, and I just love hanging out with you, because I know like we are like kindred spirits
Yeah. Me
on
too.
this, and basically just agree with each other on everything, because I just like your brain. So
Thank you.
there you go.
I love you too. It's so great to have you. Thank you for being here again, like right after
Always.
your event, and always showing up and being here and supporting the crew. You're like a fan favorite. So thank you for being here. We'll do it again, I know, very soon.
Good.
So yeah,
Yes.
let's
Awesome.
keep it rolling. Thanks so
Yeah, and let's
much.
go build our empire, and let everyone else build their empires too.
Thanks
Watch them
everybody
grow.
for watching. We will see you next Tuesday for another show of Heart Center Marketing. And hopefully you're glad you watched it. You liked this. If you did, give us a thumbs up. If you're watching live or run the replay, let us know by #live or #replay. And that will help the algorithm, I think, or at least let me know like who's watching live and who's not. We'll see you later. Bye everyone.
All right. Bye.